welcome to Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege to be here amongst all of you today.
In fact, we are privileged to have you with us. I would like you to share with us your experience of writing 2 books on 2 the best known artists of India.
You're obviously referring to Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma's book, Journey with 100 Strings, and Manjeet Bawa's in black and white. Well, I think sometimes life offers you these opportunities that are very rare to come by, and I was really, really privileged and lucky, because when I met Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma many years ago, I was in Calcutta those days. This was just before he was celebrating his 60th birthday.
Okay.
So we got talking, and I said that, you know, it is an important milestone in your life, and you know, why don't we think of a book? And in all good faith, I tried to introduce him to various music critics and to other people. Shivji met all of them very patiently, and at the end of all these meetings said, I think you can write, because with us there is a rapport, there is a friendship, and I will be able to talk to you freely. So Journey with 100 Strings was co-authored. We both wrote this, in the sense we worked on it together. And after that, actually I have to say this to you for the first time, is that for his 75th birthday, which is happening next year, there is a big book again due out on Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma's life, but a pictorial memoir. So yeah, I'm very excited, because some very important photographers who've also been part of this journey have agreed to give us photographs. So we have some wonderful photographers who are going to be supporting us with their work, and alongside the whole history of Santoor, how it's come from his father and is now passed on to his son Rahul. But so, you know, the pictorial memoir alongside articles written by important people, like Jabbar Patel is going to be writing on his cinema associations.
While he made this film.
And we've asked Pandit Vijay Kichlu to write on his music. Vijay Bhai also has been following Shivji's music for many years. And with me, again, my favorite, you know, the way I have been working for many years is to actually document lives. So with me, it's going to be, again, kind of an exchange on his personal life and the history of his life and the various changes that he brought about in the music.
In India, we realize that, you know, we just don't have a tradition of writing biographies of our artists.
How true.
The way Lust for Life made Van Gogh, you know, a household name all over the world. One wonders why this did not happen in our country, despite having such wonderful artists who have had such fantastic journeys. These journeys have rarely been documented. You are one exception who has written these 2 books and also documented these artists' works. 2, there has never been an effort to write a fictional work or maybe make a biopic on these great journeys which remain unknown. I feel 2 things happen because of this. Art does not get the kind of popularity which it would
to the common person.
To the common person. If we could narrate these interesting lives, if we could take these lives to common people, then this will generate interest in their art as well. So how did you think of it, and where did you find the support? Because many people who do want to do this kind of work, they realize that there is no financial support for this, there are no publishers for this. So how did you face all this?
There are many questions in this one.
In this one question.
So I will begin saying that when I started working, David Dabidar was the head of Penguin. And so this came as a project that was commissioned to me. And I still remember David Dabidar telling me in those days that this is something that you should focus your energies on. There are very few people who work on memoirs and biographies. So you should try and you know, focus and look at documenting lives. in retrospect, when I look back, I think it was a wonderful piece of advice to give someone who started writing. Because today I have with me not only 2 books, memoirs that have been made into films and then have won national awards. But also I have a monumental project called Faces of Indian Art, which is about 50 years. It covers 50 years of Indian art. Photographer Nimai Ghosh. So we commissioned Nimai. Manjeet was around. Manjeet and I drew up the list, and we got him to shoot studio spaces where an artist is his most comfortable. So, you know, we got some wonderful, wonderful footage. There was Raza Saab in Paris, and there was, say, a Shorbori in Shantiniketan, and lots of people in between. And that was a wonderful project. But throughout my writing career, I have found support from galleries, from publishing houses. And it also has to do with the fact that I'm very, very passionate about documenting lives. I think it's very, very important. When I look at Manjeet's life, for instance, I mean, 1 minute the person is there and larger than life, and you're at an exhibition looking at a painting, and the second minute he's just gone. You know, so I just feel that you have to be able to capture that spirit that is so alive and so strong 1 minute, and it's gone. It's like it's vanished the next.
Coming back to the same question, you know, how do we take art to common people? Yes, there are so many galleries.
Yes.
You make fantastic documentaries, but documentaries remain for a niche segment.
Correct, very correct.
So, would you think of maybe taking up these projects a step ahead and creating maybe a full-length feature film or a fictional book?
That's a beautiful question. I'm going to share a very special story with you, Vandana. I'm going to share today a very special memory with you. When I first met Manjeet, he, of course, by the time was a well-established painter and was having exhibitions the world over. Recognition had already come to him by this time, and I went to him at that point and said that I have a very strange request to make of you. Will you please allow me to exhibit your works in Shantiniketan? And Manjeet looked at me and obviously sensed that this was a very sincere request, and he agreed, just like that. And between my husband, I and Manjeet, we actually traveled every time we were doing Delhi, Kolkata trips. We brought back works and then carried these works to Shantiniketan. So it was put together in a way which was not that way very professional, because there were no, you know, there was no gallery involved, there was no major
catalogs and great.
But you know what? We did bring out a catalog, which I still have with me, and we showed all these miniature paintings of Manjeet. We carried films, you know, so we invited students of Patho Bhavan and as well as the seniors. So it was a wonderful mix of school children and great painters like K.J. Subramaniam, Shomnath Hor, Dinkar Kaushik, Jogin Chaudhary was there, Shanodda was there. So all these senior artists came, students. So it was a unique way of sharing Manjeet's work with a group of people who would have otherwise never got the opportunity to see Manjeet's work. And this I had done in the year 1998. So ever since then, I have always felt that the best show that one can put together is one that involves the common man, the common
people.
You know, on the street, to get people to come in and view the show. I followed it with a show in Kolkata at the Academy of Fine Arts. And again, the response was wonderful, because people came in droves. And it was because it wasn't this hallowed space, it wasn't this very pricey kind of a gallery. It was the Academy of Fine Arts. This is where theatre happened. This is where people met together for a cup of tea and adda in the afternoon. So again, I was very, very enthusiastic at the end of the day, because Manjeet understood that for me, just putting up exhibitions in, wonderful galleries was not enough. I really wanted the common man to see his work as much as possible, and in our association together, I have actually helped show his works across the country, in small spaces, in places that are otherwise considered to be unconventional, but some place where the ordinary, the common man could come and view the works. And yes, it is very much something that I would continue to do if I got the opportunity. Is to, yes, today this film called The Artist, for instance, has won all these Oscars. I mean, just look at it.
What
it is a story that will move all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And someone has to take the plunge and do things in a way that is maybe unconventional, trod a path that hasn't been trodden on.
Yeah.
So for me that is so important. A project that I'm working on right now is the breast stories of Mahashweta Devi. Again, it's a gender-centric, it's a very, very powerful collection of short stories. But I'm trying to look at it in a way that involves not only artists, but also filmmakers, musicians, to be able to get people from different disciplines of art to come together and to be able to put together a project that you can then share with people around is my ideal kind of situation. Difficult sometimes, but I'm going to do it, yes. And that biopic, for sure. I mean, if one can really fictionalize someone's life and make it into a film, I mean, it would be phenomenal, I think. It would be so wonderful.
You talked of bringing people from different disciplines together. Did you sometime bring Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma and Manjeet Bawa together and have a show with music and painting, something like that?
Well, actually, you're quite right. There was a collaboration, but it was an artistic collaboration. Vandana, and this happened when I was working on Shivji's book Journey with the 100 Strings. Manjeet supported the project by doing these beautiful sketches. Each one depicting a raga. That was his idea.
Wonderful.
So there were these beautiful sketches that he wove around the narration, and it was beautiful because on the one hand there's a text that Shivji and I have written, and on this other side of the page, apart from the photographs, of course, there are these sketches in black and white with different moods, showing different ragas. But though they never really, in that sense, performed together, they liked and respected each other. And I think since I worked with both of them, there was that great respect for each other and affection.
Coming back from different disciplines to one very uncomfortable question about art, and since you were an insider, I would like you to talk about this terrible controversy that took place about the fakes of Manjeet Bawa and one of his disciples saying different things, and then it was learned that many other artists also had such disciples. So give me an insider's view on what it was and how does it work.
All I can say is that I remember Manjeet being very disappointed. He was heartbroken because what he kept saying to me privately was that he felt it was a kind of betrayal. He had worked tirelessly over decades to reach where he had reached. You know, there was a period of almost 30 years when he never sold a single painting. And we know how hard his life was. We know how difficult it was sometimes to make ends meet. In London, there was a period when he actually whitewashed, painted homes to earn a living. And after all of that, after this huge struggle to reach where he reached, to even his iconography, the struggle to find the right form that ultimately happened in his paintings. After all that, for someone to just walk in and maybe, you know, trace outlines, fill them in, paint them, and claim that they are Manjeet's works, well, that was something that left him heartbroken personally. He never said anything. But that's the way the man was. There was a lot of compassion. And he only just tried to request this man to refrain from doing so in the future. But there are other artists also who have suffered the same fate. There are disciples who have actually gone and, you know, tried to imitate copy the masters. But I think that such unethical practices should be discouraged. Another thing that I should say here is that sometimes some irresponsible galleries that are out to make a quick buck encourage these people sometimes. And if everybody collectively takes a decision, you know, we'll live in a better place. I think we'll inhabit a world that is, you know, fake-free, let's say. Today, there's always one dealer or the other who's trying to peddle a fake work, knowing fully well it's not an original artwork. I would tell these people that, you know, why don't you look at a younger artist? Why don't you try and promote someone who's very, very talented?
It's an original work.
Yes, and today these fakes are, I mean, it's a nuisance really. Yeah. Whether it's Rabindranath Tagore, whether it's M.F. Hussain, whether it's Raza, Souza, I mean, Anjali's also had trouble. She had this trouble. So yes, it's something that all of us need to guard against and take, you know, we have to get together collectively and decide what the action should be. And we should think of punishing these people is what I think.
There should be some punishment.
There must be some kind of punishment.
I would like you now to tell me something about your journey. How did you start writing? I mean, you wrote 2 books, this is what we know. Yeah. But how did it all begin? Did you write on art? Were you an art critic? How long did you take to make this kind of association with a great artist and convince him that you can write a book on him?
Well, you know, when I was very little, my earliest memories of childhood is paper. My grandfather was into publishing, and they used to publish law books. In fact, they still do. And I remember this great man's photograph in the drawing room, very solemn looking with this flowing beard. And later on I was told that this was Ramtanu Lahiri. He happened to be my great-great-grandfather, the person who had actually established the Brahmo Samaj. That's an early memory. Paper, images of this man, and a household full of books. From my maternal grandparents' side, my grandfather Manish Ghatak was a very well-known poet. His brother Ritik Ghatak was a firebrand filmmaker.
Yeah.
And again books, again art, a different kind of sensibility, let's just say. So one grew into a home, a household that was in a sense that was different. You know, you had a different sense of aesthetics. You realized that early enough when you went to school, and you shared things about your experiences at home, as children tend to do, and said, oh, you know, over the weekend my father had taken me to meet Jamini Roy, and this is what he had to say, and you know, I saw this beautiful cat with this fish in its mouth, etc. And the other children were not responding, so I realized that one had a different kind of home and family members and all of that. You know, experiences, family friends who came to the house, spoke a lot of art. And so I think that happened early enough. I studied literature and always enjoyed collecting. In fact, soon after college, I bought my first work of art, which I still have. And it's a Jamini Rai, which I really, really treasure. I think I would have spent something like 1,200 or 1,500 rupees. I never looked back. And the interesting thing is that my present collection, which is wonderful, I think, has such, you know, masters like Manjeet, like Himmat, like K.J. Subramaniam, Jogen, and Zarina Hashmi, who I completely adore. So all these people also have works that I have bought in my you know, younger days, which makes me feel extremely confident, because I think that, all right, my sense of aesthetics hasn't changed that much. I still love. Okay, fine. So you've evolved. there are other works that you buy today that earlier on you were not aware of. But that sense of aesthetics was always there. Perhaps Manjeet also recognized it, because I remember the first time I met him was when I was going to Singapore with a group of artists taking works to exhibit in Singapore. And that's when I met with Manjeet, and it was like the beginning of a friendship almost instantaneously, because we spoke about a lot of things, including Brahmo Samaj, including Kolkata, including my growing up years in Bombay. And it was like there was this, like this rapport, which it was amazing. It was like we had known each other forever. And soon after the Singapore show, he said, you know, we should work together. So would you like to, you know, learn a little bit about my work? And maybe we could work together. You could be my arts impresario. And I said, I would like to very much, but I was very nervous writing the first catalogue. Okay. And it was a Q&A, so I was asking questions and he was answering. But right from that, we started working together, and I, after that, curated and wrote each and every catalogue till the day he passed. And that's how it all started. But he taught me about his art. What I've learned about colors, he taught me. And I actually saw him paint. You know, when he used to mix colors from different tubes, if I hadn't seen it with my eyes, I wouldn't have known that the red we see has several other shades. They have grays and greens and blues that the eye cannot see, but it's there, and it's kind of just the way Manjeet has mixed his colors. The lines, the doodles that would then later on become these monumental paintings, I have seen with my eyes. And the most exciting thing about being in Manjeet's studio is that the walls would change around me. It was like living in this wonderland where the walls around me would change and these paintings would come and go. There would be these drawings in black and white one day. Next day they would be half filled with color. Some other paintings would come, these would go, these would be filled up. There would be these miniatures. So it was like living in a world of colors, of images. It was a beautiful world.
So it was the other way around. Instead of you persuading the artist to write about him, the artist persuaded you.
Yes.
So did you write about other people's art as well, apart from, of course, Manjeet Bawa's art?
Yes, of course I did. I wrote exclusively for Manjeet, but also made sure when I was doing the catalogue that, you know, other people, with me, it was the personal side. I mean, I would ask, you know, it would be a question and answer about the process, about his work, about memories. And with the other writer, I would insist that they wrote about the work, so that the right balance was struck. I also wrote on other artists and have been working with many artists recently. So there is a kind of a progression from Manjeet to a TNT. There's a project one is looking at with them who do very different kind of work.
Oh yeah.
But I find that art is exciting, and if you talk to people and you know and you come to know about their stories, about their references, they all have such interesting stories to tell. So I have been lucky because I've been writing on so many different people, right from Ganesh Haloi to abstract artists and young people. Yeah, there's been many artists that I've been writing on.
Are there some books in the offing? Are you planning some more books on some other artists?
I have, of course, there have been books like Faces of Indian Art has happened. With Mappin, I did Rini Dhumal's book, which is a book of paintings. With Art Alive, I have done Sunaina Anand. She is one person I've been working with. Faces of Indian Art is a project she supported. Then later on, I did Jayashree Barman's book with her, which is again a book of paintings for which I did a longish essay. Recently, I've had a very exciting project with Delhi Art Gallery, and this is Art of Bengal, where I've written on art from 1946-47 to the year 2000. So it's a period that has just about everyone, and it ends with someone as exciting as Chitrabhanu Mazumdar, who's, I think, today one of Bengal's most exciting artists. So I think we are living in very exciting times. I think to have lived in a world where there is a Subodh Gupta and there's an M.F. Hussain and Manjeet and Raza and Souza and Bikash and Ganesh and Jogen. What a world. What a world. And we can only go from strength to strength. When I look at Bharti Khair's work, for instance, and there's this crumpled figure of this little baby elephant. You know, your heart weeps to see the kind of art that is happening around you. I mean, it's so exciting. Look at cinema, look at music, but especially look at art. Look at the visual world that is changing around us. I think we are extremely privileged to be inhabiting this world
with such diversity.
With such diversity. I have come to Chandigarh and I really want to meet Professor Goswami, who I respect more than any other, art historian. And I have been following his work and I have a lot of respect for what he does. So to come to Chandigarh to see his work, to go to Bhopal and to see somebody else's work, Swaminathan's museum there.
Yes.
So it's not only that you're working but also learning still. Going to people who have written, who are really authorities in their own right. And alongside also living, I mean, I was very lucky because I met Hussain Saab just before he passed. And he took me around his beautiful, that red light museum of his in Dubai, and showed us the paintings, shared memories of how these paintings came to him, and his friendship with this lady who returned these works to him, and how this beautiful museum came about. So these for me aren't stories that I've read in a book. These are things that I've heard. And I would like to share these stories with other people. And that's how my writing gets informed, or, you know, the substance comes from stories and narrations of people I've actually had dialogues with. The strength of my work comes from actual dialogues. And I hope I can share that and pass it down to other people and help them to learn a little.
Have a conversation.
So the next project is with Popular Prakashan, and the deal is that that a group of artists travel together and interact with each other and share dialogues and have conversations. And when you come back to your own spaces, I meet each one individually, and it's maybe a 15,000, 20,000 word format. So the book is visuals and interview that's more like a story, or you know, call it what you will, like a little memoir. So that's the next project. And what I am very happy about is the fact that normally art books are priced very expensively, and I can understand that because it's, you know, it's difficult to produce books like this. But the Popular Prakashan intends to bring these books out at 200 rupees. So all of us can buy it. I myself can buy these books. Normally with the big books I'm kind of, you know, tempted to pick up but can't, you know, buy so many. But certainly with projects like this, I think art books will be made more accessible to people, which is very important.
I would like to know two more things from you. You have kind of documented artists from Bengal.
Yes.
Would you ever think of doing the same for artists of Punjab? Because Punjab has produced so many great artists. Two, you just mentioned Swaminathan's museum, and when we go abroad, you know, you come across so many great museums dedicated exclusively to, you know, like O'Keeffe's great museum at Santa Fe. Do you also look at creating this kind of a museum for Manjeet Babar's work or some other artists?
I'm so surprised and so impressed that you brought up a subject very close to my heart, to our hearts, I should say. Manjeet and I had planned a very special space where we had planned to build this museum. And the day he went into a coma was the last day that he and I actually visited this place. We had bought a place in Delhi that Manjeet had intended to use as a studio and a place to hang his works. So the early works some of the later works, miniatures, they would all be there. It would be like a living museum, a space built around work that was presently happening. You know, that was the concept that we had, to share his works so that people wouldn't have to wait for an exhibition to show his paintings like in an exhibition.
Yeah.
But no, not a gallery, a space that had actually the artist sitting there painting, and works. You know, there would be possibly miniatures displayed one month, larger works the next, drawings at some point. We had plans that that never happened ultimately. But yes, Manjeet and I had really great hopes that one day there would be this space and people would come. Manjeet was very fond of children, and he wanted to make this space friendly for people of all ages to come and to interact with him, to look at this film that we were working on, to read the catalogs, to make it a space like what we have seen abroad.
Yes,
both of us traveled a lot, and we used to look around and we used to feel that it should be a friendly space, a space that offers comfort. You know, a person can be offered a cup of tea and conversation. If someone had questions to ask, they'd be free to ask. Because barriers sometimes, you know, put people off.
Yeah, people
You're
have so much
afraid to
awe.
ask questions.
Yeah,
there is
there's
so much of awe
that you are
Exactly.
entering a sacred space.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you don't know how to move around there.
Yes, yes.
What about artists from Punjab? Would you ever plan to do something about?
Manjeet was from Punjab.
Yeah.
And anytime. For me, Punjab is, of course, especially dear because of Manjeet. I have seen Punjab very, very intimately. And like I just said, that it came back to me when I met TNT, Thakral and Tagra. And I was so happy to hear from them about their memories of Punjab, which is a very different, irreverent, a kind of cutting edge and a different look. And I'm all with it. I'm all with it. I'm so happy to sit with them and talk about their experiences, which are so different from Manjeet's.
Yeah.
You know, I had curated once an exhibition of Manjeet's called Mapping the Conscience, and it was about the 84 riots. Which again is one of my favorite shows that we worked on together, and we'd shown that at the Jahangir Art Gallery in Bombay. But so TNT brought it all back, but in a different way, because we're talking migration, we're talking about people, we're talking about German return, all these people sitting there and taking off, you know, to Never Never Land and coming back disappointed. So for me, it was like, you know, it was for me reclaiming a space that I had once been very familiar with. So I think life is bringing me back to Punjab all over again. And I'd be very delighted because whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's just the robustness of life I see here, I'm just so in love with Punjab. You know, I came by Shatabdi today and I saw these cadmium yellow mustard fields. And it was like Manjeet was living all over again. He was painting the skies again. And, you know, I see that red, that we call it shimul, that flower that blossoms only in spring.
Yeah.
And these yellow fields. And I said, I'm home again, you know.
That's wonderful. This is my last question, and it's not a very pleasant question, but I would like you to talk about it, those 3 years when Manjeet Baba was in coma. And it's a very difficult period for people who are looking after the person, family, friends. Did you or the family at some point of time think of euthanasia, because this is what most people now talk about, and they think that it's more humane to let the person go and go with dignity.
I can only speak for myself, and what I can say is that a month before we lost him, Manjeet and I were in London with an exhibition, and he was full of spirit and good cheer, and it was a wonderfully successful exhibition. We came back and went to Ahmedabad to attend Amit Ambalal's son's wedding and met up with M.F. Hussain. Visited Sidhpur, where Hussain spent his childhood.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to share with you is the last few days of his life, because after such an exciting time when we were traveling and we were attending weddings and all of this, at Chitrabhanu's exhibition one evening, soon after we'd come back from Gujarat, he complained of this severe headache. I rushed him to Apollo Hospital, and within days he had slipped into a coma. Personally speaking, I never knew something like this could ever happen. I didn't know. Maybe you read about it, or maybe you saw a film and you said, "Oh,
It
things
happens
like
to
this
other
happen
people.
to other people."
Other people, yeah.
Coma, it doesn't happen to people like us.
Yeah.
Especially someone who was so full of life, so full of life. Manjeet used to talk non-stop. And I used to tell him, Manjeet, kabhi thoda sa bas karo. He used to love to sing, love to talk, love to share his experiences and share jokes. This person who used to talk non-stop was suddenly silent. I can't tell you, it was a very bleak and a very cold winter. It was the 17th of December 2005, the day it happened, and I look back and remember just this one thing, that it was a very cold winter. And we tried everything that was possible. We consulted doctors, I rang up friends and who were doctors in New York and London, trying to find out if there was any
way
cure,
out,
any
okay.
way out. As long as Manjeet breathed, there was hope. And while I support euthanasia, I think, of course, on paper, certainly, it's a very noble thing to do. But I couldn't bear the thought of doing it to Manjeet or letting that thought ever cross my mind, because I would never be able to let Manjeet go. As long as he breathed, there was hope.
Thank you so much. It was nice having you here, and thanks for answering all my questions.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.